So I'm Dave Levy. I'm the Director of Commercial Services for the 7 police forces in the east of England, covering Norfolk, Suffolk, Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Hertfordshire, Essex and Kent. I'm responsible for an annual spend of 250 million, covering all categories that you could think of: construction, estate services, IT, corporate spend, operational policing, and services for police and crime commissioners, which typically revolve around victim support.
What made you join this marketplace, and what new benefits do you see being achieved?
Yeah, in terms of what made us get involved, I mean, it was a case of seeing the good work that had been done in sort of the initial forces to sort of embrace it. So Thames Valley, and working and understanding from networks, the benefits that can be delivered. In terms of the wider benefits, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to identify how suppliers sometimes can deliver social value in a meaningful way to us as clients. And what the marketplace does, it provides an opportunity for suppliers to link into organisations that are working in areas to support safer streets. And the benefit for us is that we're able to use DICM to measure those outcomes and track those outcomes and provide meaningful narrative to our stakeholders and beyond about how we're delivering value through our contracts. So it's telling the story, it's been able to track delivery, and it's making it very clear that we're not just focusing on price, but that value for money equation includes wider benefits which support communities which we serve.
Until now, what have been your main issues with the end-to-end process of contracting social value and then managing it within contracts?
So I'd say the main issues were initially making the case for policing to actually understand social value internally and why it's important. I came from a local authority background where it was probably more obvious and relevant to those as contracting authorities were in policing. Certainly 6 years ago or so when I joined, it was not so well understood. So it's making that case internally, and following that, probably the understanding from the business perspective of what would be important and what would be of relevance to the forces and police and crime commissioners in terms of social value. From day one in 7 forces, we've incorporated it into our tender processes, so 10% of the evaluation criteria. So we use the themes, outcomes and measures framework as a basis for doing that. And although we refined this so it's relevant to the nature of the contract, we've spent a long time developing our internal systems to capture benefits, contract award, but it's very much focused on the quantitative measures, i.e., the proxy financial values, and we've lacked, I suppose, the narrative, the ability to storytell about the real impact of some of the stuff that's being delivered. And on top of that, we've also struggled to have sufficient dedicated resource in terms of managing delivery of that social value over the life of the contract.
With public buyers having this digital marketplace to see community validated social value, how can businesses work harder to showcase their social value, as they do for goods and services?
Yeah, I think there needs to be greater recognition from suppliers that in order to win public sector contracts these days, their business model has also got to incorporate a standard that focus on the greater public good, understanding that we as public sector, yes, we're here, we're trying to get good value for taxpayers, but the reality is part of that equation is that wider public service ethos. And whether that's through job creation, working with small to medium enterprises, apprenticeships, through to more specific safer streets type work, those local projects, or whether it's environmental sustainability, suppliers need to understand the priorities of the forces they're serving or working with, and associated police and crime commissioners, the challenges that we have locally, and identify how their own ESG or corporate social responsibility goals can align and support those efforts. And crucially, and it's a very practical thing, by doing this, suppliers then have a greater chance of scoring well in that element of the evaluation, And when you're talking about 10%, that can make the difference whether the supplier wins a contract or not.
In your region, what direction are you now taking your contract social value? And what do suppliers need to now recognise when bidding with and then delivering social value into the marketplace?
Yeah, so the Procurement Act has really helped us in this respect by sort of reinforcing the importance of social value through the National Procurement Policy Statement. So we've been able to introduce social value, for example, into areas that were previously difficult to reach. So IT, as an example, traditionally was something that was either not bothered with in terms of social value, or again, they lacked our people lacked the imagination as to what to seek from IT suppliers around social value. But we've worked on that and worked with suppliers, and as an example, we've been able to secure things like safe phones for victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence. From a supplier's perspective, I think they need to understand the public sector generally is seeking suppliers who support national priorities, so the National Procurement Policy Statement, and no matter what element of the public sector you're looking to supply into, we're all going to be seeking to support economic growth, job creation, environmental sustainability, as well as socioeconomic impact. And it's that last bit, the socioeconomic impact, that's probably more difficult, because that relies on understanding the local client that you're potentially going to be bidding into. So look for any relevant procurement policies and social value policies, things like that. As an example, in the East, we've got a supplier charter which sets out our expectations of suppliers, and locally some forces will have their own social value policy as well.
How important is it for you and your team to see a supplier's digital portfolio of social value within this UK marketplace?
Yeah, so I think the ability to actually see the portfolio digitally, it provides us with assurance that we're dealing with the right type of supplier, one that's invested in our locality, contributing to public good outside of the basic requirements of services they deliver to public sector. And secondly, it enables us to be able to see the impact of initiatives beyond mere statistics. So bringing to life, if you like, that delivery in a way that probably up to now has just been figures. So I think it's really important.